Do you really make your own decisions? Or is your brain just playing tricks on you? Think about it. Ever bought something you didn't need just because it felt right in the moment? Trusted someone instantly, then regretted it? Invested money based on a gut feeling, not logic? You're not alone. Most of us believe we're in control. But what if the truth is we're not? In the next 30 minutes, we're breaking down how your mind really works. Why you make snap decisions. Why you're so confident, even when you're wrong. And how you can start thinking smarter just by slowing down. Let's get into it. So, who is Daniel Kahneman, and why should we care about this book? Well, Kahneman isn't just another professor with theories. He's a Nobel Prize-winning psychologist who changed how we understand the human mind. And that's not an exaggeration. He's one of the few psychologists who's ever won the Nobel Prize in economics, not for running a business, but for proving that humans are way less rational than we think when it comes to making choices. His work became the foundation of something called behavioral economics. It's basically the study of why we make irrational decisions with money, time, relationships, everything. Kahneman showed that most of our decisions aren't logical at all. They're automatic, emotional, and often wrong. But we don't realize it. Now this book, Thinking, Fast and Slow, is his life's work in one place. It's not just theory. It's filled with real-world examples, experiments, and gut-punch insights that'll make you rethink how your brain works. Here's the core idea. You have two systems in your brain. System 1 is fast, automatic, and emotional. It's what helps you recognize a face in a crowd, jump back from danger, or finish a sentence without thinking. System 2 is slow, deliberate, and logical. It kicks in when you're solving a tough math problem, planning for the future, or deciding whether to quit your job. These two systems work together, but not always in harmony. Most of the time, System 1 runs the show. It makes snap judgments and tells you their facts. System 2 is the slower one, and it takes energy. So we use it only when we really have to. Kahneman doesn't just say this. He shows it. Through decades of studies and stories, he proves that we trust our gut too much, even when it misleads us. And what's wild is, this happens to everyone. Even experts. Even people who know better. But here's something that makes this book even more special. Kahneman didn't do all this alone. A lot of his work was done with his research partner and close friend, Amos Tversky. They were kind of like the Lennon and McCartney of psychology. Tversky was brilliant, sharp, and full of ideas. Together, they explored why smart people make dumb decisions. Why we fall for patterns that don't exist. Why we overestimate, underestimate, and get things wrong, all while feeling totally sure of ourselves. Their partnership was powerful. They challenged long-held beliefs in economics, psychology, and even policymaking. They helped shift the way governments, companies, and everyday people think about decision-making. Kahneman has said many times that the Nobel Prize he won in 2002 really belonged to both of them. But sadly, Amos passed away in 1996 before the world could fully recognize his impact. So why does this book matter? Because it hands you the manual to your own mind. It explains why you think the way you do. It helps you spot the traps your brain sets for you. It gives you the tools to slow down, question your first instinct, and make better decisions about money, relationships, work, even happiness. And once you understand how these two systems work, you'll start seeing them everywhere. In politics, in advertising, in your own habits. This book isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware. And once you start seeing your blind spots, you can actually do something about them. That's what makes Kahneman's work so important. It doesn't just describe the problem, it helps you live smarter. At the heart of this book are two characters living inside your mind. Kahneman calls them System 1 and System 2. Think of them as two very different ways your brain processes the world. System 1 is fast. It's automatic. It works without you even knowing. It's the reason you can read the sentence without sounding out every word. It's the gut feeling that tells you someone's angry just by looking at their face. It's the instinct that makes you slam the brakes before you even realize the car in front of you stopped. System 2, on the other hand, is slower. It takes effort. It's what kicks in when you're trying to multiply 17 times 24 in your head. Or when you're writing a tough email, making a budget, or trying not to yell during an argument. It's your brain's control center, the part that weighs options, questions first impressions, and does the hard thinking. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most of the time, System 1 runs the show. It reacts instantly, makes snap judgments, and tells you what's going on. And usually it's good enough. It helps you survive, handle day-to-day stuff, and move quickly through the world. But sometimes, System 1 jumps to conclusions. It takes shortcuts. It assumes things. And that's when System 2 is supposed to step in, to check the facts, slow things down, and keep you from making a mistake. But here's the twist. System 2 is lazy. It doesn't like effort. If System 1 gives it an answer that feels right, it usually goes with it, even if it's wrong. Take this for example. If I say, a bat and a ball cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball? Most people quickly say, 10 cents. That's System 1 talking. But if you slow down and think it through, System 2, you realize the right answer is actually 5 cents. That's the conflict. System 1 is quick and confident, even when it's wrong. System 2 is slow and careful, but it's often asleep at the wheel. This push and pull between the two systems is what shapes your decisions every day. And the better you understand them, the better you get at catching yourself before a bad call. Let's talk about shortcuts, mental ones. Your brain's a busy machine, so to save time and energy, it uses heuristics. That's just a fancy word for mental shortcuts, quick ways to make decisions without thinking too hard. They help you get through your day, but they don't always lead to the right answer. Take the availability heuristic, for example. This one's all about what's easiest to remember. If something comes to mind quickly, you assume it happens often. So when we hear about a plane crash on the news, it sticks. It's dramatic, emotional, and even though flying is one of the safest ways to travel, we suddenly feel like it's dangerous, just because that crash is fresh in our memory. Same thing with shark attacks, school shootings, celebrity scandals. If it's in the news or on social media, your brain thinks it's common, even when it's rare. Then there's the representativeness heuristic. This one's about comparing things to what we expect. We judge people and situations based on how well they fit a mental picture. Here's where it gets tricky. Imagine this. You're told about a woman named Linda. She's outspoken, deeply concerned about social justice, and active in anti-nuclear protests. Then you're asked, is Linda more likely to be a bank teller? Or a bank teller and a feminist? Most people choose the second option. It sounds right. It fits the description. But that answer's wrong. Logically, the chances of someone being two things is always less than just being one. But our brain doesn't do that math. It just sees a pattern that feels familiar and jumps. Same with another famous example. Steve is described as quiet, shy, loves detail, and is very organized. Is he more likely to be a farmer or a librarian? Most say librarian. But statistically, there are way more male farmers than male librarians, so the odds say farmer. But again, the representativeness heuristic tricks us. We match Steve's description with the stereotype of a librarian, not the actual numbers. These mental shortcuts aren't evil. They're built in. But if we rely on them too much, we end up misjudging people, misreading risks, and making choices that feel right but aren't. Understanding these biases helps us pause, ask better questions, and think with more clarity. One of the sneakiest things your brain does, it makes you feel sure, even when you're completely off. We all like to think we understand how things happen. Why someone failed. Why a business took off. Why a relationship ended. But a lot of the time, that understanding is just a neat story our mind puts together after the fact. It's called hindsight bias, the feeling that you knew it all along. You see it everywhere. A company collapses and suddenly everyone says, of course it failed. They were growing too fast. But nobody said that before it happened. We tell these stories not because they're true, but because they feel true. The brain wants everything to make sense, so it edits the past to match the present. And this leads to something even more dangerous, overconfidence. We think we can predict how things will go. We trust our instincts, our experience, our gut. But the truth is, the world's way more unpredictable than we admit. Take business forecasting. Companies pour millions into predicting markets. And yet, most of those predictions miss the mark. Why? Because too many variables are at play. But people still speak with confidence, as if they've got it all figured out. Same with politics. Same with finance. People argue on TV and social media like they've got the answers, like the future is obvious. But in reality, they're just guessing, confidently. Kahneman shows how this illusion of knowledge leads us to make bold decisions without enough caution. It's not just about being wrong, it's about being wrong with certainty. And that's where real damage happens. This connects with a powerful idea from another thinker, Nassim Taleb, and his book The Black Swan. He talks about rare, unexpected events that change everything, like 9/11, the 2008 crash, or even the COVID pandemic. Nobody sees them coming. But after they hit, people rush to explain them like they were obvious. It's comforting to think we can understand everything. But we can't. Not always. And the more aware we are of our blind spots, the more careful and smarter we become. Sometimes, saying, "I don't know," is the wisest move. Let's talk about why losing feels so much worse than winning feels good. Prospect theory, one of Kahneman's biggest ideas, explains this. It's simple. We hate losing more than we enjoy winning. Imagine you find $100 on the ground. Feels great, right? Now imagine you lose $100 from your wallet. That sinking feeling hits way harder than the joy of finding it. That's loss aversion. And it runs deep. We'll go out of our way to avoid losing, even if it means passing up a chance to gain. This explains why people hold on to bad investments too long or avoid risks that might actually help them. Now let's add two more ideas, the endowment effect and the framing effect. The endowment effect is why we overvalue what we already own. You give someone a mug, they'll demand more to sell it than they'd ever pay to buy it. Why? Because once it's mine, it feels more valuable. And the framing effect shows how wording changes decisions, even if the facts don't. Say a doctor tells you a surgery has a 90% survival rate. Sounds reassuring. But if the same doctor says there's a 10% chance of death, it suddenly feels risky, even though it's the exact same stat. That's framing. And your brain reacts differently based on how the story is told. Prospect theory pulls all of this together. It shows that we don't make decisions logically, we make them emotionally. We weigh potential losses much heavier than gains. And we're more influenced by how something is presented than what it actually means. Understanding this doesn't just help with money or business, it helps with everyday choices too. These biases aren't just abstract theories, they show up in real life, all the time. Let's start with money. In the stock market, loss aversion drives a lot of bad decisions. People panic when prices drop and sell too early just to stop the bleeding. Then when prices climb, they hesitate, afraid to jump back in. It's not logic, it's fear. We feel the pain of losing money more deeply than the joy of gaining it. Now take medicine. Say a doctor tells you a treatment has a 90% survival rate. Sounds good, right? But what if the same doctor says there's a 10% chance you'll die from it? Same numbers, but suddenly the risk feels much scarier. That's the framing effect at work. The way the info is presented changes how we feel and what we choose. Politics and media use this stuff every day. The availability heuristic, remember that? Is why we fear terrorism more than car crashes, even though the latter kills more people. Why? Because terrorism is on the news. It's dramatic, repeated, in your face. Car accidents, not so much. So when the media constantly talks about a certain issue, your brain starts to think it's more common or urgent than it really is. That's how public opinion gets shaped, not by facts, but by what's easy to recall. And politicians know how to frame things. Tax relief sounds helpful. Government giveaway sounds wasteful. Same policy, different spin, different reaction. Once you notice these patterns, it's hard to unsee them. Biases shape more than just our thoughts. They shape entire systems. Money, health, laws, elections. And the first step to seeing through the noise is knowing how your own brain works. Here's something you've probably never thought about. The person living your life and the one remembering it aren't always the same. Kahneman calls them the experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self lives in the moment. It feels the warmth of the sun, the taste of the food, the laughter in a conversation. The remembering self looks back, tells the story, and decides if something was worth it. The problem? The remembering self is the one in charge when we make decisions. Let's say you go on a vacation. The whole week is amazing, perfect weather, great food, good company. But on the last day, your flight gets delayed, your bags go missing, and you get food poisoning. Now, when someone asks how the trip was, that last 5% colors your whole memory. I don't know, it kind of sucked, you say. But did it really? The experiencing self had a great time for 6 out of 7 days. The remembering self just couldn't let go of the ending. This happens a lot more than we notice. We make choices, where to go, what to do, who to spend time with, not based on what feels good in the moment, but on what will look good or sound better later. It's why people chase Instagram-worthy vacations or force themselves through something miserable just for the story. As Kahneman puts it, we don't choose between experiences, we choose between memories of experiences. So, the real question is, are you living for the moment, or for the version of the moment you'll look back on? And is that version really worth it? So, what can you actually take from all this? First, recognize fast thinking when it shows up. That instant reaction, that quick judgment, that gut feeling, it's not always wrong, but it's not always right either. It's your brain trying to save energy. And that's fine for everyday stuff, but not when it really matters. When the stakes are high, money, relationships, career moves, pause. Give your slower brain a chance to speak up. That system too. It's slower, sure, but it's smarter when things get complex. Next, watch out for overconfidence. Just because something feels right doesn't mean it is right. We trust our instincts more than we should. Confidence feels good, but it's a terrible judge of accuracy. Also, question what feels obvious. If something seems too neat, too clean, too easy, it probably is. Fast thinking loves easy answers, simple stories, clear villains and heroes. But real life is messy. Look deeper. And remember, use slow thinking on things that matter. Before you spend that money, sign that contract, quit that job, or say something you can't take back. Slow down. Think it through. Check the facts. Look at the big picture. Kahneman's not saying we can get rid of bias. We can't. It's part of being human. But we can catch it in action. We can train ourselves to pause. We can outsmart it. That's the real power of this book. Not to make you perfect, just more aware. So the next time your brain tries to trick you, you'll see it coming. Let's end with a line that really sticks. Nothing in life is as important as you think it is, while you are thinking about it. That's Kahneman reminding us that our minds love to blow things out of proportion in the moment. We stress, we panic, we overanalyze, but later, those things often shrink in the rearview mirror. This book isn't just about psychology, it's about perspective. It's about stepping back and realizing your brain isn't always giving you the full picture. Sometimes it's rushing, sometimes it's guessing, and sometimes it's just plain wrong, but it feels right. So here's the takeaway. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be aware. Once you start noticing how your mind works, you give yourself room to pause, breathe, and choose better. If any of this hit home, backhand index pointing right, smash that like button if you've ever made a snap decision you regretted. Backhand index pointing right, drop a comment and tell me which bias caught you off guard the most. Backhand index pointing right, subscribe if you want more brutally honest book breakdowns that don't sugarcoat the truth. No fluff, no guru talk, just real insights that help you think a little clearer and live a little smarter. Thanks for hanging out with me. Now go out there and don't just react. Think.